right, folks. Welcome to what is this, episode 5 or 4? I think it's 5 of the Deanxious podcast. My name is Wayne Harrell, and today, well, I have a bunch of interviews scheduled for you guys. I am talking to a bunch of people. I have great, excellent guests coming from people who've battled addictions to people, who are going through a lot of anxiety, to billionaires who've succeeded um, and by conquering their anxieties, to people who think their anxieties are, their superpowers, only to end up thinking that was not the case because they were just channeling that energy, positively. But when they ran out of those positive things to do, well, then bad things started to happen. And we have like some other guests coming who were childhood prodigies and ended up like really totally fucking up their lives. They had initial success, um, when they were like, childhood actors and stuff like that. But later things just went south for them, and they couldn't do anything about it, right? Like, that's just how they were raised. The expectations were immense, and there's nothing they could do. So it's about 10:30 p.m. here, and I'm recording this at the night time because I think this might be one of my only or last solo episodes. I'll try to record more solo episodes, but it's quite late here. I just finished, gym. Then I had some dinner, and I live in Bangkok because it's just a fantastic place to live. I love living here. I also live here for tax optimization purposes. So, that's another thing. The food here is really excellent. There's a really amazing Thai restaurant here, and the food is spicy, but not like, it's going to kill you. And it's a restaurant near a river. It's like out in the open, but they have like, I don't know what they do, but there's like no mosquitoes. And they have like amazing, ambience. So I was just over there, having somtam, which is like papaya salad. It's really delicious. If you're ever in Thailand, you should try it. And then I had some crab meat, some fish, and rice. And I don't drink, so I didn't drink anything other than just Diet Coke. So that was really interesting. Overall, my life has been quite unpallid. I'm enjoying my life here more and more. There is a lot of amazing things to do here, and I'm thinking about rebuying a car. I used to have a gasoline car here called like Honda City, and I sold it because there was just a lot of traffic here. It just makes no sense to have a car here. You have to drive it all over the place, and then spending almost an hour trying to figure out the parking situation because the traffic here is just absolutely brutal. So I sold it, and now I'm thinking, I like road trips. So being me, and sometimes I make stupid decisions. I went out there and I saw this Chinese EV, and it's only $25,000. I don't know how they're making any money on it. But that car, if you were to buy that in the United States, it would easily be, like say 80 to $100,000 easily, right? It looks like a, G wagon, and I think a lot of these Chinese EVs are just copying, um, these German cars like Mercedes or Porsche. There is a car called what was the name? I forgot the name of that car. Oh, let me try to remember. The name of the car is Aura. Yeah, I think that's the name, ORA. And they ripped off Porsche. They just ripped off Porsche. And they're selling it for like $25,000. Now, that is an amazing deal. And it's an EV. And surprisingly, the charging infrastructure here in Bangkok is just absolutely amazing. So I thought about buying an EV, but then I was like, well, I will need these cars for a road trip. EVs are not really good when you're doing road trips. Now, they have an extensive charging network here in Thailand, right? But it's not as great as you think it is. when you're like going in the rural places. It just doesn't really work that well. So yeah, I thought about it, and then I was like, you know what? It just makes no sense. I think I'll just probably hire like a driver or something like that. But hey, if I don't return back to the United States, I would probably buy an EV here. But most people know that I'm probably just gonna go back to the United States. So there's just no reason for me to invest more into automotive products here. And I think I probably will move out of Texas in the United States as well. Probably go live in Washington State, close to Seattle. There's a city called Bellevue, and it's amazing. Um, the reason is, the weather is shitty, but I have a lot of friends over there, and I'm trying to build Deanxious over there, and it requires me to hire like a lot of great, talented people, and apparently they happen to be in Seattle metro area. I thought about going to San Francisco, but I just don't have like, uh, I don't have enough funding to be able to hire like people and pay them like say $200,000 or $300,000 a year, and hire like 15 to 20 people, right? And I've bootstrapped a lot of it, right? So it's just how it is. So we'll see how it goes. I'm looking for some investors. I'm talking to them. And the reason why I'm looking for them, even though a lot of this is bootstrapped, is because it's less about the money, more about the connections that you get with these investors, with the right people, the right tech guys, right? So, say you want to hire like somebody as a CEO, how would you do that? Well, you need connections for that. How do you get those connections? You need to raise some money, and then that VC or an angel investor is going to, start putting you in touch with people who might be interested in, working with you and making sure that things are at the things are set the right for the right trajectory. So that is really important, and that was like an enlightening moment. I was recommended a book to read on this called CEO's Handbook, and I bought it from Stripe Press. I think who wrote this book? Elad Gil. Yeah, it's about scaling the startup, and that's what we're working on here, scaling. And as you know, oh Jesus Christ, sorry, I was like lifting, like yes, I was just like looking at the book to read the name. So the reason I think the mission that we have is like really relatable. So I don't think we should have issues hiring people. And the main mission of our company is to make mental health accessible to everyone everywhere, right? And this mission is personally important to me because I've lived in countries where mental health is a fucking taboo, right? Like in Western countries, you could go and see a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist if you're having like say significant anxiety. But in many countries, especially if you're a woman, you can't do any of that stuff because people will label you as crazy, right? So, for example, if you go to Saudi Arabia, right, or Iran, or we cannot do business in Iran because it's a U.S. sanctioned country. So, let's not use that as an example. Let's say India, right? If you go to any of these places, or even Southeast Asia, people straight up do not go to therapists over there. They don't even have that many therapists or psychiatrists. They believe that people who go to them are crazy. Like, why would you want to go to a therapist? Are you crazy? Are you like schizophrenic? Or, do you have like significant bipolar disorder or something like that? And even so, only people who go to them are like rich people who are like educated, who know that, okay, it's all right to go there. So most people just sit on it and they're just told to deal with it, right? And making mental health accessible is about, getting tools in the hands of people so they can get access to, well, not real therapists, because for us to be able to offer real therapists, we have to register locally, we have to sign up with a lot of medical related organizations and get certifications, and have all that stuff set, and that's a lot of work. It's expensive stuff to do. So what we basically do is just hire like real therapists and psychiatrists, and we just say that they're coaches, right? And the advice they're giving you is not should not be considered medical advice, which is true, because it's like there's a distance between you and him. It's not like in-person stuff, and that kind of like it's helpful with liability protection. So just like offering real disclaimers, but the quality of the stuff that we're offering people is real, right? And the products, the digital products we're creating with the tools and the chatbots and the community and other products like self-therapy program, they're designed to just get high quality mental health care into the palms of people everywhere, right? And like even in the United States, if you go to rural places, they have no like concept of therapy. They don't have therapists, and even so, they don't have insurance that covers it. And those who do, just like you just don't have one. Like you have to drive like I don't know 300 miles to just see somebody, and he is also booked for like 6 months because there aren't that many of them available. And just because you have a therapist available, that doesn't mean that he's going to be the good one. So there's that. So it just solves a massive accessibility thing. A lot of veterans in the United States are struggling. They don't have access to therapists, and the ones they do have access to through nonprofits have bookings for months on end. They just straight up don't have access to them, right? And then they go to these alternative people who just try to sell them mushrooms and all kinds of horse shit. Which I believe in psychedelics. I am not like a psychedelic denier. One of my business partner is like he owns like a psychedelic company, but of course I don't have anything to do with it. But it's like his thing, and I got educated by psychedelics by him and some other people, including some of the people on our team, and it's great. But you have to be really careful about it. Meaning you have to do these things in under guidance of somebody who knows what they're doing, right? You just don't want to go on the internet and get that advice from somebody and just decide to play it yourself. So that's just not really good. Hold on, let me get the sip of my coffee. Yes, folks, I'm drinking coffee late at night because I have a lot of work to do. So speaking of our mission, that is our mission. And the other thing is to change the way, like just to make humanity a better version of itself, right? uh and I think those two things go hand in hand, right? Building tools to make mental health accessible, and in an order to make humanity a better version of itself. It's a grand vision, but it'll take a lot of time, it'll take a lot of money, it'll take a lot of work, but it's probably going to be worth it, at least in my opinion. Another sip of my cup of coffee. So anyway, let me tell you exactly why I moved here. So, when I moved to Bangkok, I was working really hard on the businesses and other things that I have, and I just burned the hell out. And I thought to myself, this is just not working out. I am burning out. And if I just continue this way, it's just not going to work. It's not worth it. I do have financial safety. It just makes no sense. And like this was like right before COVID, like right before COVID. So I made the right call, and I was able to get here really quickly. And of course, like it was during COVID, so not everything is like perfect. There was issue with vaccinations over here. I'm not a vaccine denier, by the way, but like, I think we should be able to get if we the vaccine if we want to. But here that was not the case. It was like horrible. That is the first instance of like institutionalized racism I've seen outside of Gulf country. What happened was when I came here, there were like COVID was like everywhere. A lot of people were dying, like say in India, and the Delta variant was out, and the vaccines they have here were like shitty Chinese vaccines. They don't really work, and that Russian vaccines, and that vaccine that was made in India, what was the name of that vaccine? AstraZeneca, and that's all they had, right? So like if you go in, so what happened was like you In Thailand, they were like just straight up not giving those vaccines to people who were not Thai citizens. You know, they were like, well, the vaccines are for Thai citizens only. For everyone else, they're gonna get shitty Chinese version, and you have to pay for it, right? Now, look, whatever you may think about vaccine, if negative, positive, that is not the conversation we're having here. The conversation is everybody should have equal access in the middle of a fucking pandemic, right? And that was not the case. So then I think United States just came out and say, hey, you got to watch out for this shit. It's not cool. And, like, you guys are just being morons. That's just, so just chill the fuck out. And WHO did the same thing. They didn't change anything. It was not like for Thai citizens, they could get for free, but, we had to pay for it. So I paid for the fucking vaccine. And, it's not like an optional thing. You can't just not take the vaccine. You have to do it because you could not fly, if you didn't have the vaccine. They were checking at the airport. So you need that. So, regardless of whatever your thoughts are on vaccine, it's just a different story. This is like about, having equal access. So yeah, that was really interesting. So anyway, I think I'm just rambling here, high on coffee, but yeah. So this was like let's get back to the topics, right? So this was the mission that I originally had, right? And I got burned down. I moved to Thailand, and I thought, like, let's just not give a shit about anything for a while, right? So I just stayed here, built a new life, and I just, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna give shit about anything. And you know what? Everything worked out just fine. Nothing bad happened, right? I stopped giving a shit about, things in life, about work, about, minor things, and it all worked out, right? So, I mean, of course, there is a penalty for inaction, right? Like if you want to do something and you're just afraid of doing it, um, because you're anxious about the outcomes that might happen, that's like not desirable, right? Like, for example, not willing to drive a car because you think you might die in an accident, or not flying to somewhere because you think that you might die in a plane crash. Yeah, it's just, like, you're not going to reach your destination if you're not going to fly. You're not going to get efficiently to your local destination if you're not going to drive a car or get in a car because you're afraid, right? So, not like inaction has a penalty, right? So you just have to do your due diligence on it. And I did an addendum. What was the name of that thing? The stupid episode that I did on addendum and reflections. I think it's about. I think the name of the episode is like you can just do stuff, right? That's the name of the episode. So I think the biggest mindset shift that you can get is think in terms of probabilities, right? So if you want to, like, say, do something, right, and you really want to do it, think about the probability of the outcome, right? If it's like above 60% positive, go for it. And if there are things that are like, you might be having anxiety about it, right? It's just holding you back, like invisible arms, or, not preventing you from taking action. You think that is procrastination, but, deep down that is not really procrastination. Like, you're not being lazy. It's just like something holding you back. So you just have to force yourself a little bit to, get out of your comfort zone and just think in probabilities and go and be like, okay, is there like more than 50% chance that I will succeed? If yes, then go for it, and, do just basic common sense. Like, okay, what is the penalty? What is the worst thing that could happen? And is it more likely, right? So for example, uh, let me give you an example. Like, you're jumping off from an airplane with a parachute, right? What is the, like, how much, like, what is the probability that you're probably going to die, right? Not much, because you have a parachute and you likely also have a backup. So, if the parachute fails, you have a backup. So, like, you're likely not going to die, even though you're extremely anxious to jump from an airplane because it seems daunting. You should probably take the leap. And that is how I see things. Like, I'm fucking terrified sometimes, still I am, because anxiety is normal and it's just not going to go away. It's just going to stay in your head. It's just going to pop in from time to time like a shitty friend, unannounced, asking for dinner when you don't have anything in your house or whatever, and just won't leave on time, like when you want to go to bed or whatever. And you just have to like learn how to manage it, right? So think in terms of probability and like do an analysis. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen, and what is the probability of that thing to happen, right? So, like, you don't want to go out in, say, Amazon jungle on a survival mission or like a survival expedition alone without any training, because there's a very high probability of things can go, like lots of things can go wrong. You can get eaten by a leopard or a jaguar or whatever they have over there, or get bit by a scorpion or a snake, or lost your way in the jungle, right? So if you really want to do it, you should probably prepare for it as excellent, like as thoroughly as you can, right? But you can't really do any of those things without preparing for it, right? So you have to think about it from that point of view. So yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. What else do I have on uh on my table? Yeah, so we're launching another like bot. I'm working with my partner Daniel on this, and the preliminary name for this bot is Charles. It's based on Charles Babbage, who was the guy who created like the difference engine, the first computer, I would say. And that computer is mesmerizing. If you just see it in person, it's in the Computer History Museum. They have like a working prototype. It is mesmerizing. It looks like DNA, right? Like mechanical DNA. And that was the first computer it made, like, I don't know how many years ago, like probably more than 100, right? And his programmer was Ada Lovelace, and our bot Ada is named after him. So I told Daniel about the name, and he thought that the name was, I named him after Charles Xavier from the X-Men, which, well, it works too. I mean, I like Charles Xavier. So anyway, this AI bot can do a lot of amazing things. It can, like, schedule appointments for you. It can generate action items for you. It can help you clean your room, like telling you exactly where to start. It can help you manage your ADHD, all that stuff. Ada can do a lot of those things, by the way, but it's like less, like interactive. It doesn't really work with the other tools you might have, right? And so Charles might be able to do a lot of those things, and it can also generate videos for you. Like, it can, generate like a talking head, so you can have like a real talk with somebody who look like human. And that is going to be very expensive because the computing costs are horrendous on these things. Like, for example, just to run Deanxious, our server bill is quite high, and that is one of the reasons why I cannot sell Deanxious as a standalone product to people, because there is a cost for it. Every time you use it, there is a cost that we get billed, right? There is a cost of the electricity, the AI, the servers. There's a cost for that. There's a token that we have to pay for, like everything. Every time people use the tools. So if we just like start selling it on a flat basis, it just doesn't work from an economic point of view. It just, operational point of view, it just doesn't work. We're probably going to end up losing a lot of money. So the Charles is probably going to be expensive, which is why we're figuring out how to lower the cost so we can just make it as affordable as possible. And so that is what I'm working on right now. And I'd appreciate you guys if you have any feedback, so we can pass that on to the team, as well as I will just brainstorm it on myself, and see how it works. The progress in the book is also really great, so that is going really well. Yeah, a lot of people in the community are having anxious thoughts about Donald Trump for some reason. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And look, half the people who are having anxious thoughts are not even Americans. And I'm like, guys, like, it's America. It's like, where do you live? Why are you having anxious thoughts about Donald Trump when you live in Japan and you're Japanese? So it's fucking crazy, right? Like, people pay too much attention to American media. Lots of Canadians as well, like, they pay more attention to American political news than they do to Canadian political news. And I think they probably should, because Canada is like right across the border, and Trump is probably going to hit them with like some tariff. I read about like 25% tariff that he's going to hit them on for like all the products that Canada sells to the United States. So there's that's happening, and I think it has a lot to do with shitty immigration that Canada has been going through. Canada kind of like really screwed up on immigration, and I know where these people are coming from. So like a lot of these immigrants that are going to Canada, they're being scammed by local agents in their own countries. They're telling them all kinds of bullshit, and they're going to Canada, and it's not as rosy as they thought it would be, and now they're stuck. They sold their home. They sold their stupid ass farm in India, so they have like literally nothing to go back to, and they have nothing in Canada. So it's like, I don't know what the hell. Like, I don't know how they're gonna solve this problem, but good luck to them. So that was interesting, and to this, I would say, look, there's a lot of stuff like you can't control any of these things, so it's just like not useful to be worried about it. And a lot of these things likely are not going to affect you in any meaningful way, right? Unless you're a woman and they took away the abortion rights and whatever. That's not going to affect you if you're a Japanese person living in Japan, or a Canadian person living in Canada, or like somebody who's living in, I don't know, Germany. So likely it's not going to affect you. And I think you should probably stop focusing on things that are hypothetical and outside of your control. It's one of those Stoic philosophy about, dichotomy of control, where you just focus on things that are in your direct control. And if it's not in your control, then, amor fati, right? Like, uh, so yeah, there's that. Amor fati means love of fate. It means, whatever happens, it's just for the best, and the best is all you can do. And, you just love, you just learn from your fate. You just learn from, you know, things that transpire, right? And that's just how things are. And that's, well, that's all you can do. Journaling helps. So, yeah, speaking of journaling, I did an episode on journaling in our members area, but the gist of that was like uh, the discussion I had with one of the psychotherapists on our team, and he said that we can tell a lot about a person by the way they journal, by the way they write in their journals. So, yeah, of course, we didn't do this research because we don't have access to people's journal from Deanxious, right? They just do that privately. But he did in his university program, and what he was noticing was like the we people who have like negative outcomes or were unresponsive to psychotherapeutic treatments, they were writing differently in their journals compared to the people who were getting positive results um, through psychotherapy, right? And he noticed that people who were writing, people who were having negative, like people who were getting negative results, they had like a way of writing, and they were describing the events, and they were taking the events more personally, and they were writing in a negative tone about events, like on and on and on and on, versus people who were getting positive results were describing the events as they were, and they were observing those events. They were not taking them personally, and they were not like interpreting them emotionally in a negative way, or just attaching negative connotations to it, right? Oh, this happened because probably because of that. Oh, that happened. It's probably because of corruption here, or that happened because, because of that. Oh, my driving license was delayed because there's a lot of corruption in the department, and the guy was just probably lazy and didn't want to do his job. And like these guys are just taking a lot of money from the taxpayers, and they just don't do their job. They should be fired, they should be penalized, and all that stuff. Just going on and on about why his driving license was delayed by 1 day or whatever, right? That is like attaching negative connotations to the entire thing, right? So events happen, and you attach a lengthy negative connotation and interpret the whole thing as a negative thing, right? So the way people were describing these things in the journal, it probably had a lot to do with their cognition and just the way they think, right? And that's the gist of cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So if you can change the way people interpret things, if you can change the way people think about things, um, then they would likely end up changing their behavior. And if they can change their behavior, they are likely going to have a change in the way they feel. That is the gist of CBT, right? So, if you're not getting positive response from, say, therapy or any Deanxious products or, medication, you might want to try positive journaling, where you observe things as they are and try to attach positive connotations, although you don't have to, but try to do that, right? And regardless of whatever is going on in your head, but when you're journaling, when you're getting things out on a piece of paper or in the Deanxious members area into one of the tools that we have, try to keep things as they are. Be more objective and don't attach your subjective opinions to those things. And with more practice, it will become a habit and it will change the way you practice thinking, right? And it'll make you feel better. And you might start responding to therapy or the anxious tools or even medications. So there's that. But medication is a little bit tricky. You might want to discuss more about that with your psychiatrist. So yeah, there is that. And lastly, I wanted to talk about SSRI. I read some papers on this where if you're not responding to SSRI, you might want to look into the metabolic, like how different people metabolize SSRIs differently. So if you're not responding to one SSRI, you can probably do a test and like a DNA test from, I think, what was it site, like 23andMe, something like that. And you can do that test to figure out how well you're likely to metabolize a particular SSRI, and and then you can select the right SSRI based on that. If you're in Bangkok, you can go to any hospital and they would do a lot of these tests for you. The DNA based tests, and you can kind of figure out exactly which SSRI you're more likely to respond well to. Because you would probably metabolize it slowly, and you're gonna see better results. If you metabolize like a certain medication really quickly, it was just give you like really spike, and then it falls off, right? Kind of like blood sugar. So yeah, it's one of those interesting things I've learned. Um, I also heard Derek, um, on YouTube. He was talking about saffron extract, like how interesting it is for therapeutic effects for like anti-anxiety and shit like that, right? So I thought that was interesting as well. I haven't done a lot of research on saffron extracts, but I'm gonna look into it. But that was really interesting. I thought I might want to let you guys know in case you want to try like a new supplement. So you might want to give it a try. To saffron extract. Of course, make sure the quality is really well. The problem with saffron is that it's expensive because it comes from certain region where it's difficult, right? Like, so I think it comes from Iran most of the time, right? Iran. And, they have sanctions on them. So you could probably understand, the difficulty of, sourcing products from there. Um, like if you buy anything from China, you have to be a little bit careful because there's a lot of adulteration that's happening in a lot of these things. India sells a bunch of saffrons, um, but again, it's expensive. So saffron extract is not the cheapest thing that you can buy, but it's an interesting thing to test. I have not done a lot of research on that. I will this week, and I'll let you know in the next episode of this podcast. So this was just like a rambling version of this podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and end this one right now. And I will see you in the next episodes where we're going to start interviewing a lot of people. And we're going to start, um, getting a lot of interesting people on board. And it will be long form, not short form like these ones. So that would be interesting. And yeah, wish me luck, I guess. I'll see you in the next one.